Hi, and welcome to Gen Friends. Once again, we're going to talk about relative race. Um, we had day 4 yesterday, and with me, we have a panel to discuss this emotional show. We have Bernice Bennett from Blog Talk Radio, and we have Mary Kircher-Roddy from MKR Genealogy. So, last night was something else on relative race. It was emotional. We had met Dan at Roots Tech, and he had talked to us and brought in some of the teams. And one of the teams was the red team, and it was Troy and his wife. And Troy was so emotional the whole time, and he just kept saying, I really wish I could talk to you about my journey, but he couldn't. Now we know a part of why he was so emotional. Who would like to start us off by talking about last night's show?
Well, first of all, before we even get to why it was so emotional, the rules changed.
Yes, they did.
Oh, they thought they had it made. They had each of the cousins telling them, we'll help you get out.
Yes.
And then they were told, no, you cannot get assistance from your cousins.
No, because it kind of defeats the purpose of hurrying up and being in a race if you can have your cousin lead you out of town. But I thought it was funny because the green team said, we don't need him anyway. We've always looked at the map and we knew where we were. So I thought that was pretty funny. But I was relieved that at the beginning the red team did not have to evacuate, because last week we left them with an eviction notice. They may have had to evacuation notice that they may have to leave due to the fires. So it was nice for the show to come back on and for us to know that they didn't have to leave, that everything was okay.
Their family was okay. That was really the big one.
Everybody was safe. Yes. So that was good. I liked that. So we had Team Red headed towards Eureka, California. And then do you guys remember where the blue team was going?
They were in North Carolina.
Yeah, Cherokee, North Carolina.
Yeah.
And then the green team was headed towards Alabama, I believe.
Was it Alabama?
It was Alabama.
Yes, because they started singing Sweet Home.
Yeah, they were singing their way along. And then who else? The black team was, where were they going?
They were in Idaho.
Idaho, that's right. Yeah, they were in Idaho. They were in Idaho. So, and they started talking to each other. The black team has won a couple of the rewards for day 10, those coins, and so they were trash talking. They wanted to throw the other teams off, and they were saying, "Oh, this reward is not what we thought it was going to be," trying to put them off, but it didn't work.
The
other teams were like, we know what you're doing. We know what you were doing. So they head off, and they have to do their first challenge, which was hysterical. It was the balloon pop. Who'd like to talk about that balloon challenge?
I want to play it. I was thinking this would be such a fun thing for my family to do, just to play.
As long as you can get those kids, when they're throwing those darts, not at each other.
Right.
That's true. Yes.
So, Mary, you want to explain what the balloon challenge was?
So they had 5 clumps of balloons, and one balloon in each clump had their team color, and then the other ones were yellow. So if they hit their own color, it would pop, and they would get a letter, which would help them get the code to unlock a lock. Mm-hmm. But if they got the yellow, then they would have to do some sort of challenge, which might be like throwing it backwards or throwing it with a blindfold on, or
blindfolded and backwards.
Yes, yeah. And that that part, okay, we're not doing the blindfold part because that would not be safe.
No. But, I know my children. That would not be safe.
And it was interesting, the word that they chose. And it was, obviously a more LDS word than the general public, I think, would
Well, I think they were talking about that they were staked down to the ground as well, because the balloons were staked to the ground, and I think that's why they were using that word. I think that's why they use that word.
Okay.
But what I thought was funny was the green team was so smart. They were putting the letters together before everybody else was. So as they'd get a letter, they'd start trying to figure out what the word was. So they got it very quickly. Very, very smart on their part not to wait. Very smart.
I wonder if, I guess they have to get all the letters, but you would think that at some point with even 3 letters, you could pretty much be able to figure this thing out.
I wonder if it's just stress of doing the whole thing. When you get under these things like, hosting Gen Friends, your brain doesn't work. So I could imagine that, they were having a hard time trying to figure out what that word was. So they all 3 get that done, and then it's time for the challenge that has something to do with their relatives' interest or hobbies. So did you guys have a favorite one out of the 4?
I felt so bad for those pool people because we babysat one time, my husband and I, for some friends for their kids, and they had a pool table. And I made Mark stay up till like 2:00 in the morning till I finally beat him. So I just felt so bad when she knocked the 8 ball in with only one left to go.
At first it looked easy, first it just had to rack the balls. Could do that, so it just progressed. But then it just got worse and worse and worse. And so you could tell their time was just going and going and going. Yeah. So I think my favorite was the blue team's detective. Oh my gosh, because their ancestor was a bounty hunter / fudge maker. Odd, but entertaining. And so,
yes, wasn't that interesting?
It was so funny.
Fudge, and they would dip jerky into chocolate. Doritos.
Cool Ranch Doritos.
Right.
But what was funny about that was, and they said, well, everything tastes good in chocolate. I mean, so I haven't tested that everything tastes good in chocolate, but in theory, perhaps. But I think the funniest part of that challenge was that the son had to run and find his clue, what he had to do, and he had to put on a disguise. Meanwhile, the dad has to wait 5 minutes. When he opens the box, he has to go find the suspect. He's got a wanted poster. And the wanted poster looks like what his son's going to look like in the disguise. So he had to go find him. That was hysterical.
That was cute.
Well, and that the son, the better he did, the harder it was for the dad. And of course, the son, I mean, you want to I got to do this really fast and get it. And if he just slowed down and not done anything, dad would have found him right away.
Exactly. That was hysterical. I thought that was really, really funny. And then the green team had to go to the library and find the book, and then they had to type in the opening into a typewriter. And it was funny that they go, I'm a millennium, I know how to use a typewriter. But one word wrong, you have to start it all over again.
That's right.
So that would have been frustrating because right from the get-go, I capitalized a letter and I wasn't supposed to. And so they had to start over again. So that would have been very frustrating. That was along with the pool table. Those would have been very frustrating. And then what did the black team do? The black team, what was there? Oh, they had the electricity. They had,
to wire, do the two-way switch or three-way
switch. Yeah. And luckily, he had done one before. And so it wasn't too difficult. My husband was watching and he does electronic stuff. And for him, it was like, oh, yeah, that's an easy one. I'm like, yeah, for you. But so they all made it through pretty well, except for, the red team, that was stressful. I think they had the most stressful challenge. And sometimes you look at those challenges and you think, some of them don't look fair. But I guess it all depends on what your background is. What if he had played pool all his life and, both of them and we're just happen to be good at pool? There's no way for them to know that. So it just is what it is when you're doing that. Yeah. So they get those done. And next is, meeting the relatives. And can we get through this without our own tissues and crying? I don't know. Who wants to start with one of the teams? Who do you
Well,
want to talk about?
should we start with the easy one?
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's do the green team.
Yes. Yes, let's do them.
Yeah, so the green team did meet a relative and discovered that their relative was a radio host. And so they were interviewed by their relative and sung a song. It was really nice.
It was beautiful because their relative, this radio host, was talking about how she loves stories, and so Morgan says, "Well, I've got a song I wrote about telling stories," and so it just transitioned right beautifully in, and they sound so wonderful together. They're so gifted and so talented, and it just amazes me that so far along the race, their relatives have been in the entertainment industry somewhere, somehow.
It's really amazing. Yeah.
And that they didn't know them ahead of time is what boggles my mind. But they did say that this relative, the host, had heard of their music before. So I thought, wow, and she didn't even know that they were related. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to Team Blue because that we'll go from easiest stuff to hardest.
The easy to the tears. Okay.
Easy to the tears. All righty. Well, there's were the fudge makers and the
bounty hunter.
The bounty hunter. Yeah. Yeah.
That's when they took them to the fudge shop and they got to dip all that stuff in the chocolate. How fun. What's the weirdest thing you guys have ever dipped into chocolate? Anything weird? Nothing? No, me
Nothing
just
weird. No, just
my finger,
strawberries. Yeah.
my tongue, and one of those chocolate fountains I've been known to, but other than that, no Cool Ranch Doritos. So the next time I see one, I'm going to have to try that. Beef jerky, though, I don't know.
It's that whole sweet and salty thing, though.
Yeah,
I mean, if you popcorn with chocolate drizzled on it is really good. So, and it's because of the salt,
Exactly. Exactly. But how funny. And I wonder if that was just usual for them or they were just running around looking for stuff to stick in there. Just to see what the weirdest stuff was that they could stick in there. That was too funny. But so that was another cousin that they had met. So how fun for them to be able to find these fun people. All right. You want to go Team Black or Team Red? What do we want to do next?
Let's do red.
Let's do red. All right. Who wants to start off with that one?
Red was a tearjerker. Yes, he did. He had an opportunity to meet his second cousin on his father's side and also to learn that his father had passed away.
Oh, so sad because,
that was so sad.
That's why Troy went on this journey. It's because he wanted to find his dad. He didn't know anything about his dad. And he said one of his fears was to find out that his dad had passed away. And looking at the family tree that his cousin had put together, who'd been doing genealogy, he said, for 15 years, and said he loved it because it was like a puzzle. He looked at it and he saw his mom and he saw himself, and then he stopped and he looked and saw his dad's information and saw that D and realized that meant that he had passed away, and he passed away in 2002. That was so emotional. The tears, it was heartbreaking. It was absolutely
it was heartbreaking. But the cousin had photos, and those photos, of course, brought back the memories of him with his father as when he was a child.
Yes.
With the photos, it was so interesting what they did. The producers, the way they took those photos, and they kind of showed a montage of them, but they just barely animated it. Like there was one where they were playing catch and they had a ball going across, and I think there was another one maybe where they were fishing and they had that I thought was so interesting. And if you're thinking of doing some sort of slideshow or whatever to share with your family, I wish I knew how to do something like that, because that could be a really cool thing to
makes those photos come alive.
Yeah.
Well, another interesting thing is he had said, my memory of my father is him bending down looking at me. And then they did the close-up of that photo where he's sitting on a bike, and what's his dad doing?
bending down.
looking at him. Oh, I lost it. I lost it. My heart. Just to, those memories of sitting there on that couch with him in that interview at Rootstack and him just tearing up and Dan tearing up. It was so emotional for everybody. His wife tearing up. We were tearing up listening to him say, I can't tell you about the story, but it's making sense now in his journey and how, as they said at the end, the black team said at the end, she said, I am getting closure and he's not. I'm getting what I came for and he's not. He wanted, I think he had high hopes of meeting his father, but
and Blue Team, he got to meet his dad.
He got to meet his dad. Yeah. And so, it's hard for all those teams to see him go through that. So hopefully, as they make the journey, he'll be able to find somebody close to his father, closer than the second cousin, that maybe will help it all feel a little bit better.
Somebody who knew him and can tell him more about who he was.
Tell him even more stories. Yeah. Okay, so now the black team.
Okay, so I just want to say something about black team. I could not stop staring at their eyebrows. She has very distinctive eyebrows. And I'm just looking at her uncle's eyebrows. It was like, oh my goodness, they're just the same.
I'm going to have to go back and look at their eyebrows.
And then he actually commented on how much his niece looked like her mom. And he said she got the same eyebrows. It's like,
hair.
And he said eyebrows. And the mom, all the pictures of the mom have bangs. So you don't see her eyebrows quite as much. But that part, I just like, because that's all I could focus on really was like the eyebrows.
Okay. I'm going to have to go back and look at those eyebrows. So, she knew the minute that they drove up and she saw her uncle that it was her uncle, because she had seen a picture of him the day before when she met her aunt. And so her aunt had showed her the picture. So she knew who it was. And so that was her opportunity to find out a little bit more about her mom's death. And she was concerned. Bernice, what was she concerned about?
Well, she was concerned about how her mother passed away. And she wanted to know the truth. What was the real story? And she suspected that maybe her stepfather did it.
Her father. It was her father.
Her real father. And but her uncle said no, he was there. He knew what happened. And he told her the truth.
So tragic. The story was tragic that her heel got caught in a stair and she fell down the stairs and hit her head. Tragic.
But then that the uncle said, I held her and she told me that she loved me. And so then that the woman from the black team could know that her mom's last words were about loving somebody.
About loving somebody.
But it was very emotional for the uncle to just talk about it, because he was very close to his sister, very close. And you could just see the emotions in him as he spoke and tried to help her come to closure about what happened with her mother, the truth about what happened.
Sure. And she did say, Rebecca said, she said, she's alive now with these stories. These are real stories from people who knew her. She was a mythical creature, it felt like, she said, but now she's real and she's alive to me because she's talking to people that knew her. And don't we feel that way as we're doing our research and we come upon somebody and we ask questions from somebody who knew them? Or we find stories about them and it just makes them real and it makes us feel more attached to them. So Rebecca's really feeling like through this journey that she's getting what she came for. She's getting closure and being able to get to know her mom and understand what happened. And that's helping her understand her life a little bit better.
One of the things that, that there's obviously a big change in format this year, because last year they were all starting at point A and driving toward point B and stopping along the way. But, this year they're in a much more focused geographic area, which is really the way most families are put together. So if they had to be getting all the way across the country, I mean, she would have gotten to meet, one relative in Spokane, and then the next day she would have had to be in Wyoming or something and just bypass everybody in Idaho.
Yeah.
I really like what they've done with the show.
Oh, me too. Me too. And I think I said this last week, but I love the ending when they all get together. Now, nobody wants to know who gets a strike. None of us want that part. None of us wants the strike. None of us wants, we all want them all just to keep going until day 10. But then it wouldn't be a race, and then it would defeat the whole purpose. But because they pulled all 4 of them up on the computer and they can talk to each other, and they seem to be either showing more of those conversations this year or letting them talk longer this year, they're starting to feel for one another and their journeys. And last night was a great example of that. Even Dan, as he's asking Team Red, asking Troy to share and let the others know what happened that day, Dan's tearing up and he's thanking Troy for allowing them to be able to film and record such private moments in their lives. I mean, how many of us would want that on television? Breaking down, he kept saying, I know I need to get myself together, and who could in a situation, and we never know how we're going to react. So to trust them to film that and edit it and show it in a way that is honoring them as people and not embarrassing them in any way, and being respectful, I think is really wonderful. And you could see in the eyes and just the way the other teams reacted, wiping their eyes, and they just couldn't believe what Troy had found out.
I think it was the saddest that after all that Troy had to go through, that they were the ones who got the strike.
Oh, I know.
I'm glad that they're now all again at kind of square one. Everybody's level, but it's like, oh, couldn't it have been some other day that they got the strike?
I know. It just made the day even worse.
Punch him when he's down.
Exactly. But I think probably the support that they got from the other teams, that must have felt good.
Yeah.
And if you'll don't just turn it off, keep watching, because the team's vlog, and they showed little bits of their reactions to that. And Rebecca says in their vlog, the black team at the end, she said, or was it her husband? Because he's the cousin to Troy. But they said, red team, we're rooting for you.
Yeah.
We're rooting for you.
Yes.
So that's got to be bonding. You're in this race and you want to beat everybody and you want to win, but when you hear the other stories, that's got to bond you together, especially when you've got the 3 of them that have such compelling stories, about a close family member.
Yeah.
And the green team is wonderful to watch, and they're happy and they're singing, and you don't want anything bad to happen to them either. You don't want them to leave. And they said last night, we want this for our mom. We want to win this for our mom. So they've all got great reasons to be there, and you don't want any of them to go home. But eventually, one of them is going to get 3 strikes, and we're going to be on here crying about the one that left.
That's right. We will.
Had to leave.
But it's a wonderful show. It truly is.
It really is a wonderful show. Does anybody else have anything that they want to bring up about the show, or hopes for tomorrow for the teams? But
well, I just wish I wish I could binge watch it. I just have to I hate having to wait an entire week to see what happens.
I agree.
Compelling this year. I don't recall feeling so mad when it's getting toward the end of the show. Wait, no, I want more.
Exactly. I remember feeling that way just about Joe, Team Black, last year.
Right.
Because, you wanted him to find his dad. You wanted him to find all of his family. He was there was just something about him that made you just want him to win.
Right.
Of course he didn't, because Dan gave him that strike. But we have to move on. So, but Yeah, this season
I
it's
just hope everybody's watching and taking note and just recognizing just how emotional
yes.
this entire journey of connecting with family can be and is.
And is. And we've all got stories somewhere in
Yes.
our tree where we want to, even if there are ancestors that, they're deceased, we find their stories and we want to help them connect because, we see holes in their stories and we want to help them connect. And so, whether it's with our own research and our own live families, there's something about doing this research and connecting people together. So we feel like we belong and we have that sense of who we are, I think grounds us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The understanding that we can bring that to this is why, grandma behaved the way she did
Exactly.
because of her story.
Exactly. Exactly. It helps us understand. It helps us understand who we are and why we're the way we are.
Yeah.
It can be very I don't know. It's for them it's closure and it can be the same way for us. It can be very therapeutic, I think, researching and
empowering also.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Even when we find those crazy people in our they're sometimes the most fun to research because they leave the best records and gives us something to laugh about and have a good time about. So anyway, day 4 was a tearjerker and I suspect that as we go, we continue on this journey with all 4 of the teams. We're going to have many more nights that are emotional, that are happy, that are sad. We'll cheer for them, and we'll cry for them, and we'll be upset when they come in last. And so I want to thank you so much for joining me tonight and talking about relative race. And we will continue talking as the season goes, and we will add other shows as they're on. And, if there's not a TV genealogy show on, we'll just talk about what's happening in the genealogy world. So we will continue with our Gen Friends, and we'll hope everybody will join us and just enjoy the genealogy journey and enjoy your journey and learning about your family and your ancestors. So I just want to say good night and thank you so much, and we will see you next time for Gen Friends.
Good night.
Bye. Bye.
Good night, everybody.